Welcome to On the Fly High School, a podcast presented by Playfly Sports. I'm your host, Chuck Schmidt. On today's episode, I'm pleased to have as my guest a really dear friend and a colleague who helped me a ton when I was in the association world in Arizona, a gentleman by the name of Mark Hicks, who's the managing director of development enforcement for the NCAA. Mark is a tremendous asset for our state associations and has done a lot to really increase the communication between the NCAA and state associations with the primary purpose of really helping kids and their parents and how to navigate the waters, no matter what level of play they have the opportunity to participate in the NCAA. So with that, I want to welcome Mark Hicks to On the Fly.
Chuck,
welcome.
Nice
Great to have you. How's Indianapolis today?
It's great, man. It's beautiful, blue, sunny skies. A little chilly, but not unordinary for this time of year. So
spring is here, brother. It's a good time.
Yeah.
Final Four. I wish I could say baseball was starting. Can't do that, but at least we have the NCAAs coming up and with conference tournaments, and I'm sure you're really busy. So thanks for taking the time today, brother.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
So, Mark, we go back a real long way. I had hair when we first met. I think, you were just coming out of law school and getting involved and, being a part of, and really I think you were one of the first people at the NCAA that really understood and made a concentrated effort to reach out to the state associations and develop that relationship. But before we get into that, I want to ask you, you came out of law school. Why the NCAA?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chuck. In a million years, never thought I'd want to work at the NCAA. I had a background in secondary education and came up in an education family. My mom was an educator. Had great mentors as a high school student athlete. That really had a group of coaches that really helped our family and took me under their wing. And so I spent almost a decade teaching and coaching, and absolutely loved that experience. I loved my time. Had an opportunity to coach some really great players. Had a lot of success on some teams that I participated on and coached on, and had a great time. But I also knew that probably what I didn't do when I was in college was take time to be a student. And I was so focused on getting out and becoming a coach and getting into the workplace. I volunteered as a college student to coach high school football, and just was really in a hurry to get out of college, and realized probably around age 30 that I had some more learning to do, and was interested in exploring myself as someone who had interest beyond education and coaching, and ultimately decided to go to law school. And like a lot of law students, didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Found out quickly some things I didn't want to do through experiences with litigators. But it was law school was an opportunity for me to I think explore myself as an individual, grow. And so anyway, during that time period, through a network of people, I was introduced to lawyers here at the NCAA and explored the opportunity to be a law clerk here in Indianapolis, and kind of took a whim, and they took a gamble on me, a non-traditional student at that point, a lot older than a lot of my classmates, and ended up law clerking here at a really fascinating time. A lot of big issues were happening. Dr. Brand was the president. Our legal department was very narrow. We had two lawyers. The Indianapolis office at that point was only about 5 years old. So it was really an interesting time, and I really enjoyed the opportunity to see things at a national level, the policy, how things worked. It was a first class place, first class people who really have the right interests in. So after law school, there were some openings here, and I applied. My wife happens to be from Indiana, like totally coincidental, and had the opportunity to move back to Indianapolis and in a full-time capacity, and it was great. So from there, I've had a number of jobs at the NCAA. I've had the benefit and pleasure of working in 3 different departments, not counting our Office of Legal Affairs. Where I think where we met was my primary job early on was looking into and reviewing some high schools. Is something the NCAA really tried to stay out of for a long time, but we're some high schools that were really on the fringe, if you will, where the initial eligibility requirements kind of came into question. And it seemed to me, why wouldn't we partner or collaborate with our good friends from the high school community? And I would walk past NFHS front office every day and wonder why are we not working with those folks, and set out to do that. And Chuck, that's how we got to know each other. And I think I've enjoyed a really good relationship since then. So,
well, and your education background and doing the coaching and really understanding. I mean, a lot of folks out in the community, whether it's an NCAA or a state association responsibility that we have, it's our mission, right? Mm-hmm. They don't understand the level of complexity or the nuances. And, in your role, you have done such a fabulous job of working with state associations and developing those relationships, because as questions would come up, and Prop 48 back in the day, and the other things that are continuing to evolve, right? What are your goals and objectives when you sit down with associations, or when you're asked to come and speak? It isn't always about, okay, here's what's going on. It's not just, throwing out all this information. You have really made an effort to develop those relationships and have that contact. And so my question to you that people, I think would be interested in is, what is your goal and what are your objectives in achieving that goal when you do stuff like that?
Well, I think when you look at historically the relationship between the NCAA national office and maybe high school associations and educators, it has traditionally been in a position where the NCAA national office is talking to them about rules and regulations. Mm-hmm. Here's what the rules and regulations are. I tried to flip that script. Mm-hmm. There's an element of that. Kids want to play college sports. There are rules about how you get to do that and how you be eligible. And so that's an important concept. But my number one goal and objective is to listen. Mm-hmm. And when I am out speaking with folks from your membership, state associations, high school coaches, high school educators, my first job is to listen to them. And so what happens in the hallway and in the lobby and in the conversations after are ever bit as important, if not more important, than what I might say when I'm at a podium.
Right.
I try to make myself available, more than willing to contact those folks after, if anything, to demystify maybe what happens in Indianapolis, and to bring commonality, because it's education-based athletics at every level. And so, an important ally, but my job, Chuck, and my objectives are really to listen and to make that connection so I can be a resource.
And you've done that. And, over the past, 120 years, let's say, the turn of the century, 20th century, Teddy Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson, Woodrow Wilson, I think, was the president of Princeton before he became president of the United States. Mm-hmm. But, there was a huge concern with regard to college and high school, but predominantly college, with equity in competition. A young man might be playing on the Harvard football team against Brown on one Saturday, had a great game, and all of a sudden the next weekend he's at Brown. There were many concerns with regard to safety and actually head injuries. People actually were dying. And, that really created a need for a body. And the NCAA, like many state associations, is a 501c3 voluntary membership. The schools make the rules. It's a safety-oriented And as you said, there to protect the premise of educationally based athletics, that it's not just about playing. And, we are evolving. I'm not going to ask you if you want to speak to it, but, the big elephant in the room right now is NIL and how that's going to not only impact college, but high school. We still have the concerns and the research and protocols for concussion. We've addressed many outside concerns that come from Congress, legislature, parents, institutions about transfers. How do you, from your own pulpit, not speaking on behalf of the NCAA, but from you've been in both worlds. How do you see, or what do you see as some of the challenges as we continue to evolve?
Wow, I mean, it's a complicated question, Chuck. You threw all of them out. It's not one element in the room, but a lot of them. So, and a lot of those I don't necessarily, are skilled or qualified enough to speak to the nuances of each of those issues. But collectively, it is evolving, and I think one big challenge is trying to envision education-based athletics in a new world with all those things that you just talked about. I can tell you that, the health and safety of student athletes on both the high school side and on the collegiate side is paramount. And there have been a lot of changes in recent times and over the last decade and longer, really, to address a lot of those. And I think it is important. You mentioned it briefly. It's important to remember, though, that the associations, and it's the same in high school as in college, these are member associations. And so one of the challenges is helping the members in each sport. And in our level, the presidents, you got a presidential level, you got the commissioner conference level, you got the AD level, you got the head coach level, you got the compliance level. There's a lot of voices, right? And there are a lot of angles to each of the topics that you mentioned. And so one of the great challenges we have is really helping all those voices align to get things done proactively or reactively in every one of those areas that you just mentioned. And so I think that, with all of them evolving very quickly, certainly the importance and the rise of the voice of the athlete is paramount, really, in all those. And so as these issues kind of settle out or evolve, and some on faster paces than others, I think, for us as an association, just managing, and it's not for us to manage, but helping manage all those voices and interests and viewpoints, but with trying to help the opportunity to play be as equitable as possible in a world where things don't seem like that. That's the challenge in my mind. And I'm not sure it's that much different for the secondary school community, maybe a little. But I think a lot of those pressures and a lot of those evolutions are now certainly residing or starting to take hold in the secondary school space as well. So who knows where it's going to go. It is a fascinating time, though.
Crazy
to happen.
Yeah.
So,
from my position, and as you know, we're in the multimedia rights business, which really started in college, and it's really driven by revenue. I'm not going to, hold back. In the high school space, though, I found our business is really evolving as well, in that my experience in the association world, having learned from people like you and other executive directors in state associations, I see our business really evolving in high school from an MMR perspective of helping provide needed resources to help associations evolve. They don't have the dollars that universities do, or really the television contracts and all of these things. So from an MMR perspective in high school, I'll continue to reach out to you, seek counsel, and try to understand. But I can only say this: I know what a valuable asset you have been to the associations, and I thank you for that, as I always try to do. And it's going to evolve, but you're very, you bring up some great points. The voice of the student athlete now is much stronger. And, I think contrary to a lot of public opinion, whether it's in high school or college, the NCAA has listened and continues to listen, but as a voluntary member organization where the schools make the rules, it's a difficult time to sometimes address those or position it in a way that makes a lot of PR sense, so to speak. But yeah. So as students and parents are coming through this evolving environment, Mark, does the NCAA have resources, or if there are questions in these changing times, whom should they contact, or what's some advice that you would give to a young girl who's coming out of, playing high school lacrosse, has some opportunities, and is trying to figure out what's next? Where would that individual go with her parents?
Well, I think strictly from the NCAA perspective, I think the number one resource is the NCAA Eligibility Center. And for those who may not know what that is, if you're old enough, Chuck, like you and I, the term clearinghouse is still thrown out there from time to time. But basically, it's the department at the NCAA whose job it is to certify student athletes' eligibility coming into college. It's heavily relied upon by divisions 1 and 2. There's an element of division 3, 2, or as well. But most importantly, what they've done, and they have a lot of former high school educators and people with a background in high school that work there. What they've done is created a library of resources to help parents, student athletes, coaches, and high school administrators, guidance counselors, athletic directors, with an eye towards helping prospective student athletes navigate that transition from being a high school player to being a collegiate student athlete. So that's the number one piece of advice I could give anybody that I just mentioned on that continuum would be to go to the NCAA.org, and there's a tab where you can find the Eligibility Center, and go there. There's contact information. Kids can and parents can create a profile page for free that allows you to get information, kind of behind the wall, connect with the NCAA if you have specific questions. That's going to be the regulatory side, right? That's what are the things I have to do. From a recruiting side, the NCAA is not involved in that,
Right.
That is, I think, building relationships with your coaching staff. And my advice to parents would be have a really good sense of, in a real reality check, and we talked about this over the years, a real reality check of what, number one, how good is the student athlete, the prospective student athlete, but ultimately what's driving the decision making, and find a place that's a good fit for the student as a student, and let that athletic stuff come along. And I was doing a little bit of homework before this and just trying to refresh my memory, but the bottom line is like for against football, it's something like less than 7% of all high school football players end up playing college sports, and most of those are not on scholarship. And I think it's like less than 2% earn a scholarship, less than 2% of high school players. And I think that number is close to 1 million high school football players.
Right.
2% end up getting a scholarship. And so, well, it's great to say that some do. From a priority standpoint, I want to find a school, help my child find a school that they're going to be happy being a student. And that's probably the greatest advice I can give. The other thing is coaches will find you, and it is amazing how much money families pour into youth sports, high school sports, with the hopes of continuing that education and playing on scholarship. And, I think the data shows that scholarships are few and far between. And I don't know, in an NIL world, I don't know what scholarship limits are going to look like down the road. Like, as the business evolves, the money evolves. I don't know. We'll see. There may be less opportunity. I don't know. I don't think anybody truly knows. What I do know, like, again, speaking about football, that the roster size for NFL team is 53 players. with a
Right.
practice squad.
Right.
Right now, a Division I football program has over 100 kids, 85 that are on scholarship, and I don't know if that'll stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's no inside baseball. I think about that though. Like, what does it look like for participation numbers? And so, long way of saying though, education-based athletics, the opportunity to play sports in college is still an academic exercise. And so my advice to folks would be spend as much time, if not more time, finding a school that's the right fit than just trying to push to get kids on an athletic program. So, the other thing too is the numbers really aren't that dramatically different for basketball, women's basketball, men's basketball. You're looking at, less than 2% end up having an opportunity to have a scholarship. What's crazy, where the numbers get even more absurd, is the number of kids who actually end up playing professional sports.
Right.
It's a very low number. It's like 1% of college student athletes in those revenue sports actually end up playing professional. When 1%, lower than 5% in some sports, end up playing college athletics. So 1% of the 5% or 1% of the 1.2% end up playing professional sports. So I hope that academic-based athletics can remain a focus of what has been built over the last 100 years.
Yeah.
It's truly special, and it's unlike anything else that we have here. And actually, globally, we're very unique globally. So, a long way of saying advice to parents is prioritize that school piece and that fit piece as much, if not more, than the athletic piece.
I'm going to tell you, Mark, that was perfect. I don't even want to add or jump on my own soapbox. He said it perfect, man. So my last thing here before we part ways, and I call this the flyby, and it's just kind of something I do. It's silly. Just who I am. What's your favorite movie?
I've got a 13 and a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
They're into Star Wars and The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda and all that. So,
nice. Yeah.
So what that has enabled me to do though is probably revisit all the Star Wars movies that I watched when I was their age. Having watched the original Star Wars in a movie theater and the first 3 in movie theaters at their age has been really fun. My 10-year-old daughter is a big James Bond fan. We watched Dr. No and Goldfinger. And I don't know if I have a favorite movie, but right now, especially during the pandemic, finding so much time at home, not traveling, having movie nights with the family and being able to do some of that has been a lot of fun.
That I would say that was a big blessing, right? It was a tough time, but not traveling was great. I'm just going to admit it was great being home.
Yeah.
What's your favorite mascot or most unique mascot you ever saw in college or high school?
Well, I spent a little time at Delta State University. We were the Fighting Okra.
Oh, fantastic. That's a new one. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, look them up. They're the Statesmen, but their mascot is the Fighting Okra.
That's awesome.
As a someone who's spent a lot of time coaching high school football over the years, had an opportunity to watch a lot of kids that I've coached go on and play at other places. So I don't tend to have a favorite, but enjoy watching kids get to play at all these different places. It's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, Mark, I can't thank you enough for being with you and having the time today. And honestly, I want to say this on behalf of all of us high school folks. Thanks for doing what you do. They're fighting the fight, whether, it's an understaffed, office or trying to make sure we're doing the right things for kids. You've always been there. And I say that with a full heart. I mean, it's just the truth. And thanks for that. And providing your insights today. And in closing, if any of you are interested in joining our team or partnering with Playfly, please go to playfly.com. learn more about our company and opportunities, and also watch for future podcasts of On the Fly High School, where we'll continue to talk with leaders and innovators in our sports community. Looking forward to having you join us for our next segment of On the Fly High Schools, presented by Playfly Sports. Mark, again, thank you, and God bless, my friend.
Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it, man. You're the best. Appreciate you.
Cheers, brother.